Good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Kaishen Hoff, and this is the Empty Moon Zen Sangha, Saturday morning sit on September 5th. When I was 13 years old, if you'd asked me what I was going to be when I grew up, I would have told you that I was going to be the next Nolan Ryan. I was going to pitch for the California Angels, and I was going to strike guys out to fame and applause. And if that didn't happen for me, something equally important was going to happen in my life. I was sure I was going to live an extraordinary life. Fast forward 13 years, I was 26 years old. I just entered recovery. What had brought me to recovery was a combination of several events, a relationship with drugs and alcohol, of course, but also what might be described as a Kensho moment. Now, to be clear, it wasn't a Kensho experience in the traditional Zen definition. You know, a glimpse into awakening, an experience of oneness, a vision of our true nature, emptiness, the boundless. Or maybe it was. I'll let you be the judge. This experience happened when I was walking home, or more accurately, walking to my mother's home, where I was living at the time, after I was just fired from a job I had for 3 days at Wienerschnitzel. As I was walking home, I was hit with the realization, and I will quote Colonel Kurtz from Apocalypse Now here, like I was shot with a diamond bullet right through my forehead. And this diamond bullet was the realization that nothing extraordinary will be happening in my life, that I was doomed to ordinariness at best. I recently read a quote from Linda Berry from her book, What It Is, that says, "We don't create a fantasy world to escape reality. We create it to be able to stay." Yes, and I've been thinking a lot about fantasy and the extraordinary a lot lately, mapping its role in my life and how it still has life today. When I was a child, I knew I had an overactive fantasy life. It ran the gamut from hero stories about how I would save the day in any given situation, to role-playing, to being a major league pitcher, of course, to eventually the imagined romantic pursuits of various loves that would make the world, or my world, a better place. I now know that this overactive fantasy life was a function of, or survival strategy in the face of the blankness and uncertainty I grew up in. Like the quote from Linda Berry says, it allowed me to stay in a world I found to be ultimately perilous, capable of inflicting injury at any moment. A feeling that I imagine many are experiencing currently. Unfortunately, I still find the world a precarious place at times. I will often describe my experience in it comparable to walking around without any skin on. And when these moments show up, I'm prone to retreat into myself and spark up my fantasy life and imagine the extraordinary as a way to stay in it. As an adult, these fantasies take a different but similar form. Unfortunately, I now sometimes include others in the fantasy without their knowledge. As you can imagine, when the real returns, this often leaves others with a range of experiences that include confusion, disappointment, resentment. I don't escape these experiences either. Then came Zen. And as I began to practice, I began to understand that Zen is about, or at least encourages, the ordinary. That Zen, is good for nothing, and or nothing special. I was learning that Zen was in direct contrast to my yearning for the extraordinary. That Zen was an antidote to the unending and exhausting search for a special life. And that the destination in Zen, if there is such a thing, is actually an ordinary life, nothing special. But why? Because Zen also taught me that I was going to die and that it could happen at any time. So this was most likely, unintentionally, created a sense of urgency in me that needed to hurry up and start living a life of significance, because it could be gone at any moment. I was confused. Now this is where I need to enter the idea of paradox. Paradox, loosely defined, is a situation or thing that combines contradictory features or qualities. I have come to understand paradox as something to pay attention to, that when paradox is present, most likely mystery or the ineffable is close at hand. Zen teacher John Tarrant writes about paradox and happiness in this way. While a lot of time, quote, while a lot of time is spent pursuing happiness, the evidence is compelling that if you plunge toward this unicorn directly, you will miss it by miles, and therefore won't receive its famous kindnesses. Doesn't everybody know this already? Yes. Does that stop anybody from chasing happiness? No. Unquote. And this is what I eventually learned about the extraordinary, the ordinary, and Zen's relentless focus on embracing the ordinary. That the paradox is, until I could fully embrace the ordinary, the extraordinary would always be elusive. Thomas Merton says, we are living in a world that is absolutely transparent, and the divine is shining through it all the time. When I lean into the ordinary, get curious about my boredom, drop the fantasy, and pay attention, all sorts of extraordinary experiences are available to me. Now, I might not be striking guys out to fame and applause, but did you see the moon the other night? I suppose my Zen practice has been and continues to be an antidote to the fantasy or the trap of the hustle for the extraordinary. It is an attempt to live in the world fully, hoping to feel, see, and experience everything, all of it. Letting go of fantasy and its sometimes helpful effects seems such a tall order on certain days. I mean, it's been around for so long. But I also know that some days I never know if I'm dreaming or if I'm awake or both.